Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brownstone. I'm your host, Dr. Michele, and you're listening to Numbers Don't Lie. We learn to get out your feelings so you can make the best decisions for yourself, your family, and your business. Well, we are in part two of our breastfeeding episodes, and it was just too much. It was just too much to contain into one. So I didn't even want to, I didn't want to cut too much out because education, as you will hear and have already heard if you listen to part one, is really the key to turn this thing around. So this is your first time kind of tuning in to Numbers Don't Lie and you missed part one of the breastfeeding series. I need you to go back and listen to part one first. I mean, you can listen to this one, but make sure you go check out part one because we really laid a foundation of the benefits of breastfeeding and why this is even an important topic at all. So part one has so much information about the barriers that are even in place and how we can start to overcome them. It's not just on the mother. It's not just on the mother. So I encourage you to also listen to part one. So without further ado, we're going to jump back in with our guest, Anisha Smith. She's a labor and delivery nurse. We have Rosalie Henry, who is a postpartum doula, that aftercare support, right? And then we have Dr. Tisha Felder, who is a researcher and has a initiative that she's going to talk a little bit about towards the end. So jump back in this episode of Numbers Don't Lie, breastfeeding. Tisha, you said something about those first 2 weeks, and that's something that Rosalie and I have talked about before, about those first 2 weeks and those first couple of weeks after the mom returns home. And even though that's the time when her and baby most need support, that's when the house is most empty. And so I do want to kind of come back there because we talked, Anisha, you mentioned the latching period. Like sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. And I think that is I guess it affects the mom mentally as well, because it's like, well, maybe this is not for me. But I love that you said it took me 3 weeks, but you persevered. So I do want to kind of come back to that place of that support period, like that support time. And what if latching doesn't come easy? Like, what can I guess the village around the mom and baby do? So like the nurses, the doulas, the grandparents, the husband or the partner, like what can the people around do to support the mom, especially when it doesn't come easy? And I'm gonna start with you, Rosalie.
Uh, just keep encouraging her, let her know that, it's okay. Not everyone, you know, latches takes on immediate, right? But then again, it goes back to having that lactation consultant on speed dial, having that person like an insurance, she's there, for when you need her. Even if you feel like you're not going to need her, just having her, she's someone who's trained and to be able to help you. But also joining, peer groups, support groups, other moms who have gone through, before you, that who can encourage you, and just building that support team, your family. Talk about it before. Make sure you express like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to breastfeed, and I want you to encourage me and be there for me as much as possible. Don't be the first thing that come out of your mouth. Oh, let's try formula. So these are things that, just talk about it before and make sure that everyone is on the same page.
I will just totally co-sign that. I know particularly with my first, I did go through a breastfeeding class, so I kind of knew a little bit about the fact that as they say, what breastfeeding is natural, but it's not easy, and I knew that part. However, again, your body has to adjust, and again, you don't. If your baby's not latching properly, you can. I know I was in pain for a while, having to troubleshoot, my body healing and trying to pump and do all of that. And it's exhausting. I mean, it can be very exhausting, especially those first couple of weeks, because baby's eating all the time,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
and so I know in my family, my husband was extremely supportive. He would help bring water, food, everything. I just sat still and just fed the baby pretty much all day. He'd help up at night, like whatever I needed. And my mom did not breastfeed me, but she did breastfeed my brother. And my mother-in-law had some breastfeeding experience. So I had a lot of people who were very supportive. I do remember those early weeks. I was really, really, again, just really I feel like I was stressed out the entire time with my first child. But it's because it's so much change, so fast in your life. But I remember being really stressed, and my mother-in-law came over, And I think my mom had come over, and my husband like cornered them as soon as they got in the house. And they told me about this later.
Later.
Like, don't ask. Don't ask her about how breastfeeding is going. Don't ask right now. But I appreciated that. I felt like he was trying to protect me from, any additional stress. So but I also I was fortunate. I had a circle of girlfriends who all had breastfed. So I had people that I could call on.
Mhm.
And then at the time we had a lactation consultant through our pediatrician practice. So I could go see a lactation consultant in that way, and didn't have to necessarily pay an additional fee for that. It was covered, under the medical visit for my baby.
I'll say quickly that I had my first baby in 97. So of course there was nothing. There's no Zoom, there's no internet, there's no nothing. And you're a teenager and ain't nobody around you even doing all of this. Breastfeeding for teen, are you serious? I did have a midwife village though, because I had midwives as my care providers. I was one of their pilot clients. It's a long story, I ain't gonna get into it, but they were extremely supportive of me in the hospital when it came to breastfeeding. And then, of course, knowing that my mother and grandmother also. And I think historically, the support just in knowing that your mothers and grandmothers and aunts did breastfeed, it just gives you, like okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because now I'm in a line of women who have gone through this. So I did not have, so when I had my last two, my husband, we left Cleveland, we left our hometown. So my last two kids were like, it was me and him. And then if the step parents came, or not step parents, but the in-laws, came down to visit, it was a short time. So again, 05, internet is like, we barely kind of getting into, we definitely not in the Zoom, we not in virtual calls, we
I
not.
still had a floppy disk in 05.
Ma'am, we not doing none of the tech. You know what I mean? Like no diaper genies, nothing. Okay. So we're still in that era of like, you still had a lot that you had to figure out just through family. And I did not have anybody on hand. But I will say what did help me, and it's funny thinking back on it, was the fact that I was a labor nurse. So the teaching that I was doing and the help that I was doing at work helped me troubleshoot myself when it was time to try to, and then it helped me keep going because I was like, okay, well, I have to get a hand pump now. This middle child giving me some trouble. When I get engorged, I'm gonna have to be like, in the car pumping like relief. You know what I'm saying? But I understood that was a part of the process versus abandoning the process altogether, because we really don't know what failure looks like, and that's one of the biggest educational pieces that moms, their metric for failure is like, if it ain't perfect, it's broken. And that is just not how it goes in breastfeeding. But we like these myths and in these visions and things are visualized as perfection. And you could have anatomy issues, flat nipple. There's so many things, flat nipples. You have medications that may, hinder production. You may have a small jaw, you may have a tied tongue. Like I could get into all of the things that will affect like how the outcome is. And if mom's not properly educated on these like barriers, she's gonna see failure at each and every one of them. And then like she's head out the game before the game has even started. And so I just come from a place of saying like, yes, breastfeeding was way before technology said it was okay and gave everybody these, very pretty, this picture of breastfeeding that's perfect to the point where if it don't look like that, you're not doing it. And we got to get away from that, just from a challenge perspective, from a perspective of moms and parents. My husband was extremely supportive. He fed babies while I was at work. He thawed breast milk. He did all of these things over my shifts at night with our girls. And that is how we were able to do it, for me to go as long as I went, as a working mom. So it's definitely a tag team, and we just did have each other. It's not impossible, but you have to know that it's challenging, and it can be extremely challenging. So
it's work.
It's work, and your body knows it's work.
Yes.
Like you're tired.
Yes.
You're exhausted.
Yeah.
Producing takes a lot out of you.
Burning calories. You burning all kind of
And
calories.
and also too, sometimes as mom, I have to encourage them. Okay, you have to eat. You have to eat differently. No, you're eating not just for you, but you're eating so you can produce nutrients that the baby needs. So that's another added thing. A lot of times, mom give birth, all she's thinking of like, okay, the baby, and not even about herself, but what intake she needs and how she needs to care for herself, so she can be that mom for her baby.
Did you know that data-driven organizations were 19 times more profitable? 19. You heard me right. Perhaps you're asking, what is data-driven and how do I become one of those organizations? I'm so glad you asked. I want you to go take a quiz. It's a simple, quick quiz to help you assess if you are in fact one of those organizations. Head over to mogulbeginnings.com/data into dollars quiz now. That's mogulbeginnings.com. You can just go to mogulbeginnings.com and it'll show you the data into dollars quiz. Take it now. You'll see if you're on your way to 19xing your profitability. You're listening to Numbers Don't Lie on KCCR Cityscape. We hope you're enjoying the tunes and all the jams. Make sure you visit our website over at brownstoneworldwide.com to learn about all things Brownstone. You can check out Brownstone Living Magazine and all the great things that we have on the website, as well as the shop. You just got to head over to the website, brownstoneworldwide.com.
Keeping it locked to KCCR Radio,
my station,
the Brownstone Center, and don't forget, no matter where you go, there we are.
Ooh-cha. It sounds like it's not even just the fact that you want to do it and there's people around, but it's their attitude towards it. Because you said it earlier, Rosalie, about don't even mention formula. So I feel like if that's why don't you just do that? As the minute gets hard, it's just kind of like the D word, divorce. Like the minute gets hard, you want to bring that up. Like that's not the moment to do it. And so I love how you guys talked about the struggles, but also the support system. But it all seems like it has to be an intentional effort, because I can't imagine trying to do that all on my own and not having anybody around me that can like help me through. Because it's like formula is just so easy. I mean, if you can afford it, formula is just so easy to just get. You know what I mean? And so it does take intentional effort to want to start the journey and continue it, especially in the midst of barriers. So I appreciate each of your perspectives around that.
One thing I find so much easier, like even the week office, it's so much easier for you to get formula than to get access to it.
Ooh, I was gonna say
I'm in your
that.
head, Anisha. I'm in your head. It's so much easier to get formula than to get access to a lactation consultant.
That's
so counterintuitive, because I was on WIC with my son. Like I was through everything. I had WIC with him. I was on food stamps with him because I was a college student. I qualified for everything. And as a child, I mean, as a teenage mom, you just saw the benefit in the access, but not the education. So I would have been educated about breastfeeding. When you say you're breastfeeding, you don't get formula. You get like peanut butter and some other like stuff that they had. Like it was something else. So, a part of their statistics in keeping was like based on like how you got your like WIC coupons and stuff back then. Was this breast bottle? Like it was like, are you breastfeeding? Bottle
Either or.
Yeah. And so like even just the mentality of I can get more if I say I'm formula feeding.
Right. That's true.
Breastfeeding. I don't know if it's still true, but it's almost a counterintuitive like situation where we're telling you breastfeeding is all the things, but you're really not getting the support. Like the support is in the education and encouragement. It's there. It's not necessarily, and of course the diet, but that's a whole nother podcast. We talk about diet and the American diet and how that just but as far as like social services go, a lot of our moms are on social services, especially Black moms. A lot of them just see the totality of what can I get for this? What do I need to say to get the maximum benefit for what's happening? And so when you present all of these alternative solutions to the issues that you may encourage with breastfeeding, it's so much easier to tap out. It's so much easier to forget it.
And if you go back to, moms not having that support at work where she can, breastfeed and store her milk, and her baby's at daycare. So it's just so much easier to just move forward. When you think about that way, because what else should she do? She cannot not pump. Then her milk is going to lose that. Her supply is going to, go down.
Yeah, our NICU moms, the ones that are extremely determined, ask for that pump, and the NICU and lactation will come and tell them, hey, 6 hours is the window that we encourage you to start pumping. And yes, you may have had a C-section, and yes, you may feel like crap. But if you want production, like if you want to see this kind of through, it's really, and strongly encouraged that you start in that 6 hour window so that your body is now triggered. It's got messaging. It's got something to do in that arena. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to try to do it later. So even the alternative deliveries, because everybody's not going home with their baby.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole nother situation where education and encouragement those are the things. Those are the reasons I was able to get through breastfeeding with with 2 children, 2 additional children, and no family. It was education. It was just because I was in the industry. But a lot of moms are not in the industry. They're not into the hours. They don't have to take this education. They don't have to keep up with anything. And then you've got some moms who are just like, no, don't worry about that. Go ahead and get that baby a bottle. Or breastfeeding is the baby's always hungry. So I think I'm just going to give the baby a bottle. Like, they don't even understand that, it's just in education. It really comes down to education and just letting them, understanding the demands of the body, and then letting the people support them towards breastfeeding and not always trying to cap it. Because everybody's life is going to be so much easier. Now granny can feed the baby. Now the dad can feed the baby because the baby's not on mom's breast. And that's a prettier picture. Now everybody can give the baby a bottle. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You said something, Anisha, about it's easier to just get formula than like a lactation specialist. The same can be said. I'm gonna just say this and I'll move on real quick. But it's a reflection of our healthcare system. Yeah. I was talking to a friend, and it's easier, like insurance will cover weight loss surgery, but not like nutrition is. Or like it's on, like now that the GLP-1s are out there, that some people, their insurance still doesn't cover that. I'm like, y'all cover surgery? That's a huge risk. So our healthcare system has some growing up to do. And stuff like that does explain why we lag behind in so many metrics. When we talking about health, we're like a high, our gross domestic product is one of the highest, but our healthcare system does not help us kind of keep that trajectory. Like, it should go together. Not here. So that's for another podcast. I'll sprinkle that in about every time.
I'm like, okay.
But Dr. Michele, also, if you think about it, it's just like for me, a postpartum doula, right? The insurance will not pay for our service to go in and help a mom who is sleep deprived, going through anxiety, going through all these different emotions. But God forbid, if that mom hurt her child, they'll give her an attorney, right? They'll pay for an attorney, defend her, right? And they'll make sure that they put her in some psych ward that they're going to pay for. But you're not paying for her to get the help before it even gets to that point.
Very reactive. Very reactive. Okay, let me get this last one in before we end up on something. But we might have to do a part 2. But you mentioned something, Anisha, just about like policy and structure about things like that. So there are initiatives like baby-friendly hospitals. Now, I've heard good things and I've heard the not so good things about that. So I just kind of want to get you guys' take on initiatives like baby-friendly hospitals and others, and their effect on being helpful for the initiation and duration of breastfeeding.
I'll let Anisha take that part since she's in the hospital, and I can piggyback.
Go ahead, girl.
So I can speak. I can't speak as much of the postpartum and the NICU piece because I'm labor and delivery, and so we don't do LDR. I don't take the mom over as postpartum after her initial recovery. But what I can say, the initiative on paper is really forward thinking. It does tackle a lot of the challenges that typically happen with parents, and like our job in baby friendly hospitals is to get moms to commit and to stay committed to breastfeeding throughout the duration of their stay. So that could be additional resources, that could be additional education. But what I will say is what really needs to happen in this baby friendly environment is pre-education. Because she may be in there for 3-day induction. She may have had pushing for 2.5 hours. She may have had an operative delivery or delivery that was other and difficult. She may have had postpartum hemorrhage. She may have had preeclampsia. She's exhausted. And where she came into the hospital one way with one set of thinking, one way to like gung-ho about it all. We don't know where you'll end up with this. We are obviously gonna help with the best outcome, and we're gonna work toward the best outcome. But you would imagine a lot of moms who just plan for nothing to happen, and then everything happens. The last thing they're thinking about is being reset into breastfeeding. Like some of them will just abandon. Like I just can't even. And then you have some that no matter what, we gonna get this baby to latch. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I do what I gotta do. My one is eye open, one eye's closed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I feel like the hurdle wouldn't be so high if they really understood these things before. Like if this was really more so a part of prenatal education and the part of it where doulas had a hand and more lactation relationships had a hand in really preparing mom, like down to the anatomy of the body. Because I really don't think sometimes people understand how the body works in pregnancy and postpartum, and we treat people like they are dumb and they won't understand it, so we're not gonna bother to explain it. I understood way more, and I did want to do more when I understood the anatomy of the body and how it worked, and sometimes how it works slow and some other folks works fast. The amount of pregnancies affect the body's performance. The medications perfect. So there was like, we need to stop treating these other adult families like they can't be educated on the way the body works. Educate, roll it into more initiatives that hit mom, so that she could just, if nothing else, we understand that delivery could be totally black sideways. Like I've lived this and I've worked this over and over and over, and everybody is exhausted at the delivery. So the last thing I'm gonna do is be like, okay, now time to put the baby on. She'd be like, listen, give me a minute. You know what I mean? So I think for her to circle back and for her to not like abandon ship where she may need more time to recover, it's still okay if she's got that education on board and she don't have a bunch of naysayers that are in the family and the friends and everybody texting and all that. Oh girl, get that baby back. Because that's really what it is. It's peer pressure in the other direction.
Yeah.
Either we're not working hard enough. It's just their mom and grandmom and best friend and auntie and godmom all bottle fed and all their babies is fine. And ain't nothing wrong with giving that baby a bottle.
Fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. He gonna be okay. You don't need to worry about all of that. Like out the mouth. And so like, let me just go ahead and get a bottle. And that's literally it. And so baby friendly out the window. Once we convert them to bottle feeding, statistically, we have failed. She came in with one objective and she's leaving with another. So those are the behind the scenes things that we really can't control, but we can at least prepare mom before all of these things. If she just understood a little bit more around like how the body works and how this is not necessarily an easy decision. So when it's easy, it's all great. When the baby latches real right away and milk comes right away, it's great. But if something happens, it's still okay to like not abandon ship. Like things will happen. Like the molding of the head, I always use as an example. Is this hair gonna always look like this? That's what they ask us. It looks funny shape. And it's like the body works itself out. So we tell them it's gonna go back to normal. It's okay. And I feel like that's a message that we need to impart to moms. It's like, yes, it is a total show right now, but you still making milk. Your body's still prepared for recovery. Your baby is still going to need you. Like it is okay to break and to maybe delay, but don't abandon the ship. That's really what, and I think that conversation needs to not be us in the hospital pushing that on them when we're pushing everything else on them too.
Right.
All of this education about postpartum. Oh my gosh, you got an episiotomy or you got a tear, you got that thing. How are you gonna walk? How are you gonna clean yourself? Like there's so much stuff that they have in the hospital. They're bombarded with information, and then you got to be perfect and be like A plus plus so that your baby can eat. There's a lot. It's a lot. So some of that education needs to happen outside the hospital when it comes to breastfeeding because it's just too much.
That's good.
Or definitely, before, and I'll piggyback on some of the things that Nisha said. One thing I always say, encourage hospitals to create environment that support breastfeeding from birth, right? From birth. Well, if you
golden hour,
that golden, yeah, if you're a baby for the hospital, emphasis grooming into skin contact. Right? Make sure they have access to lactation consultant. That is so crucial, like within the first 6 hours. Someone should be there for them. Hey, is this what you want to do? Let's go. It's work, but I'm here to support you. And feed them feed them, just educate them. Give them as much education as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, Anisha, you said it. You said that, I think a little while back, just about the failure point and how it's just inaccurate. But I think it goes directly to what you're saying about the prenatal education. Like you gotta have that education ahead of time.
Yes.
Because then you go into it knowing, okay, if I have a latch problem, that's okay. And I think even in Rosalie, I think too, you said about normalizing things. And I think that's part of normalizing breastfeeding is really understanding it.
Yes.
Like we typically don't understand it. So if you haven't had personal experience or you don't know somebody who's had personal experience, you have no idea what is normal when it comes to breastfeeding. So yeah, I love the idea of just the failure point. Like you got to really be crashing and burning for it truly to be over. And I think it's because it's so hard and everything you said, both of you have said, just the fatigue, all that, sets in and it makes it a little bit harder to kind of push past. But when you have that support around you, they give you the strength to keep on working.
I love that.
Yeah. That golden hour is really important. And it's I've seen the outcomes, just from leaving the baby on the chest for the first hour and letting them migrate on right on down to the nipple. That's usually what happens during that time period. And is magical for newborns who can be left on the chest for the first hour, to be left there and to be left to bond and listen to mom and dad, and those latch experiences are much better experiences when we leave those babies right where they are. They do and that's one of the things I was saying, that baby friendly hospitals are implementing lactation and they're implementing the golden hour rule, whereas if baby can stay for that hour, that is definitely something that has proven, just in my view of experience working, to just give mom confidence and bonding, and it's just so much there's so much unspoken benefit there that lends to mom pushing through to breastfeeding.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Numbers Don't Lie with me, Dr. Michele. It has been such a great experience listening to these ladies as well as learning from them. I know you learned a lot too. Okay. So if you want to connect more with them, make sure you check each of them out on LinkedIn. Anisha Smith, that's Aneesha Smith. You can check her out on LinkedIn. Rosalie Henry, that's Rosa Lee, all one word, on LinkedIn as well. And then Dr. Tisha Felder on LinkedIn. I'll make sure I put the links in the comment section or the description box so you can see it if you're watching us. But if you're listening, head on over to LinkedIn to connect with our guest panelists, and make sure you connect with me, Dr. Michele, at Mogul Beginnings. That's MOGUL. I'm at All Things Mogul Beginnings on social media, as well as my website. If you want to learn more about how you can articulate the impact that you're making in your community with your organization, we're the ones that can help you do that with technology and giving you digital products to help you showcase what you do to the world, to your stakeholders, and to your funders. Alrighty, guys, have a great rest of your week. Make sure you check out All Things Brownstone as well, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Mogul Beginnings Data Consulting helps nonprofits and small businesses strategize, optimize, and scale by unleashing the power of their data. So if you're ready for your data to be unleashed to help your business tell beautiful stories, connect today by logging on to mogulbeginnings.com. That's mogulbeginnings.com.